hair and sleek gray jowls. The other two were thinner, more subdued. One had a little patch of a mustache. They took a table near the front, ordered large pitchers, then fell to arguing amongst themselves over change for the jukebox. I fixed on the leader, the blonde one, upon the obscene thickness of his lips, while I finished off my whiskey. By thus focusing, I drew his eye. It was the first any of them had noticed of me. And for a moment, all four fell silent. God knows how I must have appeared, stuck back in the shadows, visage ringed by wolf fur. At first, the blonde one gave me a surly look, then it dissolved on the sudden, replaced by one of briefest dread. And I knew I had him. From the bucket beside the stove, I withdrew the likeliest birch piece, fingering its nodules and feathery curls. And of course, I had my knife and pistol. Murderous bastards, like so many infectious street dogs, circulating the vacuum of their own oblivion. And the most absurd, most obscene thing about it is they think they're going to last forever. I reared my upper lip and felt my teeth's exposure to the air. The blonde one blabbed at the black-haired stooge, while the bland one with the mustache listened, leaning back in his chair. The other was up with his back to me, gazing into the jukebox. I grabbed the leader with my eyes. After a snide exchange with the other, he rose from his chair. I pulled him till he stood before my table. Surely he reached for something in his shirt. It took me back to Little League, when upon the rarest of occasions, every grain of the bat converged against the immaculate ball, sending it ringing. Home run. I laid the full weight of the birch club between the pig's eyes, and he disappeared over backwards. Reflexively, stupidly, the other was up, coming at me like a bear, arms spread, head lowered. I clubbed him across the top of his skull, sending him headlong into the center post of my cable school table and into the peanut shells. As he passed, I was vaguely aware when one of his fingernails grazed my parka sleeve. I landed and shrieked. The pig at the table fell over backwards in his chair, while the other, squealing, tried to wedge himself into a narrow niche between the jukebox and an inner wall. I ran out at the mouth of the shaft. I remember the lurking mongrel just as he sprang for me. I caught him under the chin. He caved onto his back. Before he could recover, I nailed him across the snout. And when I came down with both hands on the full weight of the club, I could feel his skull pop like a melon. I ran behind the building, and with the aid of some exposed roots and a dwarf spruce tree near the top, managed to scale the steep embankment. I squatted at the edge of the woods, gazing down over the roof of the dome for what could have been 5 or even 50 minutes. Then somebody emerged from the shaft, and I shrieked once and heaved the club. It hit the roof, then bounced off the hood of the pig's car, and whoever the creep was ducked and ran back inside. I bolted into the woods. The snow was so deep in places that I sank to my waist, but plunged ahead on boundless energy. Figuring straight through, I'd come out on the lower leg of Happy Road. A volley of cries burst from the distances to my left. Careening northward, I stopped to face the sounds. A response ensued from the depths behind me, descending swiftly in pitch, soon joined by others, prolonged and reverberant even after the echoes died. Then one appeared not 30 yards into the trees, regarding me intently with pointed ears. I shouted and waved, and instantaneously he lunged, paralleling my direction. Bursting through the snow, I fell to using my arms and hands for increased efficiency, and discovered I could fairly skim. I came boiling down onto Happy Road, landing on my haunches. I stood upright and howled. It came so easily, rising from my belly, my diaphragm, its tenor shaped by contours of throat. How far the sound carries on economy of breath. How receptive are the skies to its exultation. I headed on up the silent, gleaming road at an easy lope. Then I spotted another standing on the bank, and for a moment his eyes glowed. He leapt onto the road and took up my course ahead of me, his great tail arched, glancing back from time to time. I heard their songs quite regularly now, coming from the woods above and below, blending, shifting timber as they converged. I saw them, too, knifing over the snow's surface between shadows. Several sat in the middle of the road ahead, regarding the leader. Rising, they nosed him with diffidence, then fell in with our pace. One brushed against my legs from behind as he crossed and left the opposite bank. 3 others surrounded me, so close I could have touched them. They growled and lunged at one another with lolling tongues, their breath lifting like veils in the moonlight. I might have counted a dozen at a time, and thus was I born beneath the Arctic fires. Charlie Bass's barn was dark, so was Lenny Meisner's cabin. The light of kerosene shone feebly through the trees from Aspen Obozinski's garage. He was surprised to see me, though certainly cordial enough in his sweats. "Ansley, what's happening, man?" "Revolution." Suddenly there came a thud against the door, followed by a brief scramble, then a single piercing yip. The time it took for Obozinski to locate a flashlight and get on his boot liners couldn't have been more than 30 seconds. Outside, splayed on its back, was a black, medium-sized serpentine dog, its throat and half its chest cavity torn open, blood still frothing from the belated pulse. "That's Zero! That's Lenny's dog!" Obozinski exclaimed, aghast, stepping backward on quavering knees. I laughed and howled and disappeared into the darkness. Next day, an entire smoky quadrant of the South was taken up by talk of the wolves' latest onslaught against civilization's dogs. And though everything pertaining to it remained ultimately tacit, there was the general acknowledgement that by extension, civilization's dogs meant civilization itself. Me? It was funny. There'd been several incidents, Goldstream Valley, Murphy Dome, even Chena Ridge and the Steves Highway, as well as Happy Road, and to some it all seemed coordinated. Everybody sought an explanation, of course. The winter's been severe, and in some cases at least, the wolves did eat the dogs. Down to, but excluding the very tip of the tail, as Steve in the North mentioned regarding one occurrence. Obozinski was there, looking vaguely troubled, glancing at me furtively like some kind of guilty thing. Hell, I felt so pleasantly detached. The speculation struck me as decidedly specious, and I was aware of smiling now and then. I'd quit my job at the Commons, and I did have an exam coming up on Faulkner's The Bear. Apparently, Zero lost his liver and one lung. This having been determined by an autopsy performed by Charlie Bass and Lenny Meisner. Estimates circulated as to how many dogs were killed in a single night, the highest being 20. Calloway thought all the work, including the whole area, was accomplished by only 3 wolves. He clung to this theory quite tenaciously, and in the end I had to credit his stoicism. But why? Everyone pushed for why. Calloway said wolves simply hate dogs, and if looked at it one way, where a person happened to be the owner of a worthless dog, it's a good way to have rid of it. The public at large is growing irate. Petitions are being posted. There's sentiment to get fish and game and even the army out after the wolf. At this latter suggestion, I chuckled audibly. And there are some who will retaliate with traps and poison.